And this video is going to help you understand how to solve absolute value equations. It's just like solving a basic equation, only with one small twist. Remember that for absolute values, what we're saying is whatever number x is, that its absolute value, its distance from 0 on a number line, equals 5 units. So if we picture a number line, remember from 0, we're saying that it could be 5 units out this direction, so out at 5, but we could also be 5 units out the other direction, so out at -5. So it actually is going to have two solutions. We're going to split this equation into two parts and say that x could have been 5 or -5. Again, that comes from the fact that the absolute value of 5 equals 5, but the absolute value at -5 also equals 5. Well, when it comes to an actual equation, that gets a little bit trickier, because now you have multiple parts inside. So we need to both split and solve. Once you have the absolute value isolated completely by itself, now is a perfect time to split up into those two equations. So again, we could, if the absolute value really didn't do anything, if it was a positive number inside, and it's going to have no change on that number on the other side of the equation, say that 3x plus 8 equals 20. But if what was inside of here would have been a -20, the absolute value changing it into a positive 20, then we have to consider that that stuff on the left side could have been a negative value of the exact same expression, therefore equal to 20 still, because the absolute value would cancel that negative and still give you a positive 20. Now in the first equation, that's a pretty easy solve. That's 3x, subtract off our 8 becomes 12, and x could be equal to 4. Or you could have a couple of different options on this one. We can distribute our negative, which is probably one of the easier options. So we'll just say -3x minus 8 equals 20. You could have also just divided away that negative, and maybe on the next example we'll do that. But for this one, let's go ahead and add our 8. So -3x equals 28, and therefore x could have been 4, or x could be equal to, well, 28 divided by -3 doesn't divide evenly, so I'm just going to leave that as a -28 thirds. If you took either one of those two numbers, plugged it back into your equation, they should both come out to 20. Well, let's do another quick example, and I'll show you, like I said, that you could have also split them and then solved that one on the right a little bit differently. Don't forget, we're going to throw a little or in between there. Just remember, there can be one number or the other. Technically can't be both at the same time. So there you go. Let's make that look a little better. 4. So again, we've got our absolute value by itself. Let's go ahead and split. -5x minus 3 could be equal to 8, or negative of -5x minus 3 could be equal to 8. Which means for the equation on the left, -5x equals 11, and x could be equal to a -11/5. Or, this time I'm going to go ahead and take that negative, I'm going to divide it over to the other side, so that -5x minus 3 equals -8. So I'm just sort of swinging that over to this side. Because it's an equal sign, pretty quick and easy move, and now again we just do the same moves we did on the left side. Add our 3, which this time just happens to come out to -5, and then divide by your -5, and your two options are x could be equal to 1 or -11/5, or -2.2. Let's do one more of those examples, just a little tougher example, and then we'll let you go. Now notice here the absolute value is not by itself, so the first thing you're probably going to want to do is actually divide away this 3. Let's go ahead and divide the whole thing. The absolute value kind of acts like a parenthesis, so you only have to divide one of the two parts, multiplication and division. You just do it once. But these 3's are going to cancel, and you're going to have the absolute value of 2x plus 12 equals 4x this time. Then let's go ahead and split it, so that on the left, positive 2x plus 12 could be equal to 4x, or negative the quantity, 2x plus 12, could have been equal to 4x. Again, I would go ahead and subtract my 2x this time since we got x's on both sides. Let's move that term, and you'll end up with x could be equal to 6, or if I move that negative over to the other side, 2x plus 12 equals a negative 4x. Subtract our 2x again, is a negative 6x, and x could also be equal to negative 2. Now, because we want to be careful, we should have on the other page as well, but again, you always want to double check your answers. So if I plug 6 back in to my equation, 3 absolute value of 2 times 6 plus 12 becomes 3 times the absolute value of 12 plus 12 is 24. And since that's just a 24, 3 times 24 is 72. Well, on the right side, 12 times 6 is also 72. That looks like a very good answer. However, I believe, if we double check the other side, 3 times the absolute value of 2 times negative 2 plus 12 equals 12 times negative 2. The problem you're going to run into here is 3 times an absolute value has to come up positive. Negative 4 plus 12 is going to be 8. But remember, that's going to be a positive 24. Well, 12 times negative 2 is definitely a negative 24. And therefore, this is an extraneous solution. Remember, that word extraneous means an extra answer that somewhere in our math, something got messed around, and it doesn't actually work in our final answer. So the only answer to this problem is actually x equals 6. Make sure you check in your answers, and make sure that those answers on the previous page worked, but I believe they did. And good luck on your homework.